Ladies and gentlemen. Look at this. Somebody come look at this. Look at this.
We are fond of talking about the United States of America as an exemplar of that which is good and bad. When they said in 1776 that they held certain truths to be self-evident, that all men were born equal, that they were endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable right, that among those who are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, were blacks included? No, they were not. Did they not fight a civil war? Yes, they did. Are they not frustrating people until 1963? Did George Floyd, was he not killed only recently? There is not a single nation without trials and tribulation.
Hello fam, welcome to yet another day on My Boss TV. And today we are continuing our series on Professor Patrick Lumumba's speech in Lagos. And today we are continuing from where we left off yesterday. And people keep asking me, why do I do these African things and African topics about Africa, politics and such? I believe before we can move forward as a people, as a civilization, as a continent, I think we have to understand our past and what things that have been done in the past has traumatized our future, has had influence in our future. I'm not saying we should point fingers or anything, but we should learn from it. We should remember, understanding it, understanding why we are the way we are, the place we are right now, why the systems are the way they are and such. And again, to advocate that there are people actually that are trying to make a difference, but just that the leaders that are being given to us or that are being appointed into positions are not well equipped to lead there. So that's why I keep doing this. And I know it's not an easy thing, but we'll keep pushing on. Politics is never a fun topic. Of course, I could drop many funny things in it, but then that would take the message out of it. We will have fun. We'll have fun moments. I'm a very funny guy, but that time will come in the near future. Let's go get it.
And I'm suggesting to you, we have and will continue to make our mistakes. Look at Africa and the decision that she has made for herself over the years. As early as 1980, Africans sitting here in Lagos, Nigeria, came up with the Lagos Plan of Action. And the Lagos Plan of Action told Africa, in order for Africa to realize our potential, we must trade amongst ourselves. But the neo-colonizer was not resting. A little earlier, 5 years earlier, the neo-colonizers had sat down in Lomé in Togo, not too far from here, and came up with an agreement of African and European and Pacific countries. And when that did not work, they sat again in Cotonou here in Benin and came up with the Cotonou Agreement. They are never resting. We must never forget that. The neo-colonialists are alive and well, and is always trying to frustrate what we do because Africa is their hunting ground. And we did not stop there. When we are doing things, you tell me what Africa has not tried to do. In terms of the airspace, we agreed in Yamoussoukro, in La Côte d'Ivoire, that we will open our airspaces in 1988. We sat in Abuja here in Nigeria in 2001 and said we were going to spend not less than 15% of our budget in the health sector. We sat in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea in 2014 and said we were going to focus on agriculture. We sat down in Maputo in 2013 and said we were going to ensure that our women were mainstreamed in the activities of Africa. We sat down in Abuja in 2014 and said we were going to have free movement of people, and once again sat down in Kigali, Rwanda 2018 and said we were going to eliminate visas. We sat down in Abuja and said that we were going to silence the guns in 2013. We did not. And we sat down in 2020 and said we were going to silence them. And now the guns are alive and well. And who are supplying us with the weapons? It is not us, it is others. Should we blame them? Yes, we should. Should we blame ourselves? Yes, we should. So Africa has always been a battleground. And the rhetoric that we see and the manner in which we ourselves are educated. My sister talked about education. But really, what are we teaching ourselves? It is fella Nicola Pokuti said, "Teacher, don't teach me nonsense." And I'm suggesting to us that most of us, including most of us who are here, we are so very thoroughly miseducated that what we must do is to unlearn the burden that we have in our mind. Those of us who are lawyers, when do we feel happiest? When we cite an English authority to determine a land case in Abeokuta. When we talk about the reasonable man, we don't talk about the reasonable man in a keke, in a papa. We talk about the reasonable man being the man in the Clapham omnibus in London, England. That is how miseducated we are. And until we are re-educated, we who are present here are part of the danger to Africa. Because even in our unguarded moments, I went several years ago to the university at Harvard and talking to students, and one of them said that Harvard was the best school in law, in teaching of law. I said, whose law? Nigerian law? Ugandan law? Zimbabwean law? They can only be best in teaching their law, not ours. And I've seen we who are in this space of education, somebody spends 6 years at Unilag, and when they go to Harvard or Stanford for 3 weeks for a short course where they spend most of the time taking tea, he comes back and says, an alumni of Harvard. So the time is now. The time is now to begin re-educating ourselves. The time is now to exercise the ghost of low self-esteem. You know, Africa has many things. We have talked about our mineral resources. We've talked about our arable land. We have talked about many things, but from where I sit, the greatest African resource is the human resource. You know, Africa has been so wronged by other civilizations. We were the enablers of the first industrial revolution. When our ancestors were taken to work in the farms in Europe, we enabled that revolution. Right now, we are enabling the fourth industrial revolution and the fifth industrial revolution. That is why they have talent visas, because they are taking our talent. If it is not nurses, it is our IT gurus. If it is not our IT gurus, it is our engineers. And we are gleefully letting them away. I see our heads of state saying, we have signed a contract to take our workers to Saudi Arabia, modern day slavery. And you know, just this morning, my wife sent me a proverb from Turkey that when you elect a clown and you think that he will be a king, what he does is to convert the kingdom into a circus. And I am suggesting to us that that is part of the African problem, because it starts with political hygiene. Most of Africa is suffering because we do not have democracies. We have kakistocracies. And kakistocracies are governments by our very worst. This is what we must deal with, and this is what we must say. Who do we elect into our public offices? Because, as I've said before, when you allow hyenas to take care of goats, why should you be surprised when the goats are eaten? This is the same. And Africa is only going to realize our potential in all areas when, by dint of choice, we enable and allow our best men and women to serve in different areas. I've heard it being said about Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore. I've heard it being suggested about Mahathir Mohamad in Malaysia. I've heard it being said about Japan. I've heard it being said about other countries, but there was a conscious decision on the part of those individuals and the followership. We always talk about leaders, but we never talk about the followers. The followers must also style up. Africans on average are for some reason attracted to thieves. Africans are for some reason attracted to men and women who cannot serve her. And when they are not served, then they complain. When Africans are told, choose you now whom we shall release, Jesus of Nazareth or Barabbas, they say, release Barabbas. And when Barabbas behaves like Barabbas, they say, why are you not behaving like Christ? It cannot be done. And this is what we must do. And I am submitting to us that it can be done and it should be done. I know a number of African countries, and I traveled this continent sufficiently to know that there are African countries that are doing well. They are trying. There is no nation without trials and tribulation. We are fond of talking about the United States of America as an exemplar of that which is good and bad. When they said in 1776 that they held certain truths to be self-evident, that all men were born equal, that they were endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable right, that among those who are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, were blacks included? No, they were not. Did they not fight a civil war? Yes, they did. Are they not frustrating people until 1963? Did George Floyd, was he not killed only recently? There is not a single nation without trials and tribulation. And we must therefore remind ourselves that we have the wherewithal to catapult Africa into a different orbit. And Nyerere of Tanzania once said, we must also define what development means. And he said, development does not mean necessarily the building of skyscrapers. There is nothing wrong with that. But let the Americans go to the moon, we are going to provide water to our villages. We must define what development means. And once we define what development means, and we define ourselves, then Africa shall realize our potential. In 1996, Thabo Mbeki talked about an African. Who is an African? Who are you? Define yourself first. The Chinese define themselves. The Indonesians define themselves. The Koreans define themselves. We must define ourselves and begin to believe in our institutions. You know, and I see it in this part of the world. When we want to look at our economy, we say, what does Moody's say? And Moody's is very moody when they come to Africa. Moody's.
Hello fam, yes, we've been in there to watch the part 2 of the series, Professor Patrick Lumumba's speech. And again, talks about the actions that were taken by our forefathers to develop Africa, to make Africa a better place for their children and their children's children. But the colonizers had left, but they weren't gone, because many things were tried a certain place, but of course found ways and means. They found African people who were again easily manipulated to be their foot soldiers. So they'll be up there and giving the commands for them to do what they can't do themselves. And these are the kind of things that are very important, I think. So we shouldn't somewhere along the line be so harsh, so judgmental when we talk about the olden days. These people had good intentions. Our forefathers, they had good intentions. They wanted to open up airspace. They agreed to use 15% of their GDP on healthcare. They wanted to focus on agriculture. They wanted women's rights. They wanted free movement of people through Africa. But how come those things are still not in place? Why? Because there are powers that are holding those things back. There are people that don't want to see Africa and Africans move forward. And even if they are to, at a rate and at a pace that they want, or which is more convenient for them. Because if you free their minds and actually set them free, we will thrive so well, they will thrive so well that it will bust their mind. It will bust their mind. Set them free, keep them in their fence. So we know exactly where to locate them and how to locate them when we need miseducation of Africans. We still sit here and read books that are written not for us, not by us, but these are the kind of books we use in schools. We are measured on a scale, not on our scale, but on a scale. Who said that we needed PhDs, doctor degrees and all that stuff? No, just not it. You can't tell me just because somebody has a doctor's degree means like somebody who is standing there making tables and chairs is not important. Yes, they are both important, but without the chair and the table, what is the person with the doctor's degree? What is he going to set? Where is he going to? What desk is he going to set by? Has he built any robots to build that table or chair for him? No. So you still need people. You still need people with craft, handy workers. So these things we sit there and say like, we have to have European or a Western way of education. Does it always serves our purpose? Does it always bear fruit to us? It's not. So we should, it is decorated as democracy, but it's not democracy. Talk about the Africans being trained in Africa, but always sick abroad. Like, for a typical example, in Ghana, most nurses are leaving Ghana to seek greener pastures in UK. Why? Because the economy is so bad. They can get more money for their work in UK, so they seek greener pastures, better futures. But if we Africans had built a better Africa, we could hold all those people in our own country to serve their own people. To serve their own people. And as I said, apparently there was a say that all humans were equal, but apparently blacks weren't involved in that. But you heard him talk about it. So, well, and the thing about development, yes, as he said, if they are building skyscrapers, we building a well or just a clean place for our people, our village, or building a school in our village should be good enough. Because development depends on the view of the person looking at it. If you didn't have any and you have some now, that's development. But anyways, I'll drop it here for you. See you on the next side on the part 3.